Hello everyone and welcome to another grammar lesson. Today we're going to study nominal clauses or we can call it noun clauses. A noun clause is a type of dependent clause that works like a single noun in a sentence. Even though it contains a subject and a verb, it cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. So before we start, can you tell me what is a noun in English, and can a clause function like a noun, and what do we call a clause that cannot stand alone? Let me know your answers in the comment section. Thank you. Okay, let's see what is a noun clause. A noun clause is a dependent clause that performs the job of a noun. Like any clause, it has its own subject and verb, but unlike an independent clause, it cannot stand alone. A sentence with a noun clause usually has one subject and verb in the main clause and another subject and verb inside the noun clause. Let's see the example. Whoever wrote the graffiti needs grammar lesson. Let's break it down. You can see the noun clause here, whoever wrote the graffiti, and the main clause needs grammar lessons. The whole noun clause acts as a subject of the sentence, yes? If the clause can be replaced by a single noun or a noun phrase, it's functioning like a noun. So we can say Cody needs grammar lessons instead of saying whoever wrote the graffiti needs grammar lessons. Okay, so the clause is acting as a noun. Or another example is, I know that coffee grows in Brazil. Instead of saying this, we can say I know the fact. Yes. So this sounds actually incomplete when we just say the fact, but it helps show that the clause is in a noun position. Now we want to see noun clause versus relative or adjective clause. Let's distinguish a noun clause from a relative clause. This is important because both may begin with words like who, which, or that, but their functions are different. A noun clause replaces a noun. For example, Karen needs to speak with whoever runs the store. Well, here the clause whoever runs the store functions as the object of the preposition with. Yes, and it's a noun clause. But in a relative clause, it actually modifies a noun already mentioned. For example, Karen needs to speak with the person who runs the store. Here, who runs the store describes the person. Okay, so ask yourself, does the clause replace a noun or does it describe a noun? If it replaces a noun, it's probably a noun clause. Now let's see noun clause versus noun phrase. A noun clause and a noun phrase can both act like nouns, but they are not the same. A noun clause contains a verb, and a noun phrase does not contain a verb. For example, the clerk told us how we can go to the highway. This is a noun clause because it includes the verb can go. But in the sentence, the clerk told us directions to the highway, this is a noun phrase because it has no verb. So if you see a subject plus verb inside the structure, you may be dealing with a clause. Now let's see words that introduce noun clauses. Noun clauses are often introduced by specific words. These words tell us what kind of clause it is and how it came from another structure. We have some common introductory words, which are WH words and interrogative pronouns. Okay, we have who, what, where, when, why, how, whoever, whomever, whatever, wherever, whenever, whichever, and that, which is especially used with statements. I will talk about statements. And we have subordinating conjunctions, which are if, whether, and whether or not. Okay, actually these conjunctions help connect ideas and show relationships of condition, choice, or uncertainty. Now we have some derivations for noun clauses. Let's start with the basic statements. When we want to report a fact or a claim, we use the markers that or the fact that. Look at the first example. The base statement is I'm tired. When we embed this after a reporting verb, it becomes she said that she was tired. We use the fact that, especially when the noun clause is acting as the subject of the sentence to make it sound more formal. For instance, the fact that they won the match surprised everyone. Well, it sounds much more sophisticated than just saying they won and it surprised us. Yes. The next segment is from questions, or we can call it the inversion trap. This is where most errors occur. When a question is transformed into a noun clause, it loses its inversion. The auxiliary verb do, does, did, these disappears and the subject moves back to the front. We have yes/no questions. For questions like is he coming, we use if or whether. So for answering is he coming, we say I don't know if he is coming. Okay, notice that we don't say if is he, we say if he is. Yes. And we have WH questions. We keep the question word where, what, why, how, but we restore the statement word order. So look at the example. Why did he leave? When it's transformed, we say I wonder why he left. Why did it change to left? Because once we remove the auxiliary did, the main verb must take the tense. This is a hallmark of advanced fluency. Okay. The third segment is derived from requests and suggestions. When we turn a request or a let's suggestion into a noun clause, we usually use that. So take the base request, please help me. We transform it to I requested that you help me. Okay. In informal English, after verbs like suggest, request, or ask, we use the subjunctive mood, the base form of the verb. Okay. Even if the subject is he or she, we don't add a. For example, I suggested that he start early, not he starts. Okay, this is wrong. And the next segment is derived from exclamations. Finally, we can even turn emotional exclamations into noun clauses using what or how. For example, what a beautiful painting. We say, what a beautiful painting it is. Yes, we often use this as the subject or object of a sentence to show emphasis. Note that even here, the verb is comes at the very end to maintain that subject plus verb structure. Now let's see functions of noun clauses in a sentence. A noun clause can do almost everything a noun can do. That means that it can appear in several different positions in sentence. Yes, it can become subject. For example, whoever wins the race gets the trophy. Here the noun clause whoever wins the race is the subject of the sentence. Yes. Or another example is that coffee grows in Brazil is well known. Yes. That coffee grows in Brazil. This is subject. It can become subject after it, or we say delayed subject. Okay, sometimes English delays the noun clause by using it as a dummy subject. For example, it is well known that coffee grows in Brazil. This sounds more natural and than placing the full clause at the beginning. Yes. It can become direct object. For example, I know that coffee grows in Brazil. Here the clause answers the question, I know what? Yes, that coffee grows in Brazil. It can become indirect object. For example, she told whoever would listen her sad story. This structure is less common, but it's grammatically possible, okay? And it can become object of a preposition. A noun clause can also follow a preposition, okay? For example, our suspect depends on who owns the murder weapon. We were concerned about whether he would get the money. When a clause is the object of a preposition, use the fact that for statements rather than just that. Okay, this is an important rule. For example, the police are suspicious of the fact that the safe was not locked. Okay, and it can become a subject complement or a predicate nominative. Yes, a noun clause can also complete the meaning of a linking verb. For example, my understanding is that coffee grows in Brazil. The question is whether he will get the money. Yes. Now let's look at the chart. Notice the middle column is present main verb and the right column is past main verb. So we have simple present to simple past. If he says it now, it becomes he says he arrives late. Yes, for example. But if he said it yesterday, for example, it becomes he said he arrived late. Yes, present becomes past. We have progressiveness. For example, he says he is arriving becomes he said he was arriving. The ing stays, but the helper verb backshifts. Yes. We have the perfect trap. This is important. Both the simple past and the present perfect backshift into the past perfect. For example, he says he has arrived. He said he had arrived. Okay. And we have future and modal. Yes, future will becomes the conditional would. And modals like may become might. For example, he says he will come becomes he said he would come. Or for modal, he says he may come tomorrow becomes he said he might come tomorrow. Yes. Now we have some pro tips here. You know, English loves exceptions, right? Look at the first pro tip. If you're talking about a universal truth, a fact, or a habit that is still true right now, you don't have to backshift. For example, he said that the train always arrives late. Even though said is past, the train still arrives late every day. It is a permanent fact, and so we keep the present tense. If you changed it to arrived, it might sound like the train doesn't do that anymore. Yes. And look at the second pro tip. This deals with nested or embedded clauses, like Russian dolls. You know that? Where one clause is inside another. The rule here is the backshift continues through every level. Look at the example. He said that she thought that he had finished. Because the first verb is said, the second must be thought, and the third must be had finished. You can say he said she thinks he finishes. Yes. The past tense infects the entire chain. Now, the subjunctive mood. We use this when there is a sense of urgency, requirements, or strong recommendation. The magic of the subjunctive is the base verb, regardless of the subject. Even if it's he, she, or it, the verb never changes. No s or ed or ing is added. Yes. So let's look at verbs of urgency. We have verbs advise, ask, demand, insist, suggest. Yes. When these are followed by that, the formula is simple. Subject plus base verb. Look at the example. The committee suggests that we hold more meetings. Even if it were he suggests, we would still say that he hold. Okay. Look at adjectives of urgency. We see the same pattern with adjectives like essential, imperative, important, and vital. Here is the structure. It is plus adjective plus that. So observe the example. It is important that each student fill out a form. Notice it's not fills, yes, because it's a requirement. We use the base form fill. Look at the notes. We have negatives and alternatives. For negative, this is a common exam trap. You don't use doesn't or don't. You simply put not before the base verb. For example, the manager insists that the employees not be late. Okay. And we have informal British usage. It's another note here. Finally, keep in mind that in British English or daily conversation, people often insert should. For example, the committee suggests that we should hold more meetings. Both are correct, yes, but the subjunctive is considered more formal and academic. Now let's look at how we use noun clauses after the verb wish. The most important thing to understand here is that wish deals with unreal situations, things that are contrary to the facts of reality. To show that a situation is imaginary, we follow one simple rule. We move the tense one step back into the past. We have present contrary to fact. Think about a situation happening right now. For example, my wife plays poorly. My wife plays the piano poorly, for example. That is the reality. If you want to express a desire for this present reality to be different, we shift the present simple to the simple past. For example, I wish she played better now. Even though we use the word played, past tense, we are actually talking about the present moment, okay? And we have past contrary to fact. What if the situation happened in the past? For example, they didn't have a TV back then. To wish for a different past, we must go even further back. We shift the past simple to the past perfect. So it becomes they wish they had had a TV. This is a regret about a past fact that cannot be changed. Yes. And we have connections to conditionals. For those of you who know your conditional state sentences, you'll see a clear connection here. Present wishes use the same logic as the second conditional. If I won, I would. Yes, this is the structure. If I won, I would. And past wishes use the same logic as the third conditional. If they had studied, for example. Yes. The key point here is that wish always looks backward in time. To change the present, use the past. To change the past, use the past perfect. Sometimes a full noun clause can feel a bit heavy or wordy. In English, we have a shortcut called abridgment. This allows us to replace the entire clause with an infinitive, to plus verb, but only under specific conditions. The key requirement for abridgment is that the agent must be clearly identified elsewhere in the sentence. So, first one, we have agent is the subject. In the first case, the person doing the action in the noun clause is the same as the subject of the main sentence. Look at the example, I don't know when I should go. Since I is both the subject and the person going, we can simplify it to I don't know when to go. It's cleaner, more direct, and very natural. And the second one is agent is the object. Here the agent of the clause is the object of the main sentence. Look at the example, he told me when I should go. Here the person who should go is me, the object. Because it's clear who are talking about, we can abridge it and say he told me when to go. Yes. And we have a crucial punctuation rule here. So look at the warning here at the bottom. This is a very common mistake in writing. No comma ever separates a noun clause or its abridged form from the rest of the sentence. Okay, whether it's a subject or an object, it's an essential part of the sentence structure. So keep it glued to the verb without any punctuation. Does everyone see how the infinitive replaces both the subject and the modal verb should? Yes. That's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. In the upcoming video, we'll talk about relative clause or adjective clause. Follow for more. Thank you.